first thing we're going to do is this handle right here has to come off.
Okay.
So what's tricky about this is you just got to pull. It is a little trickier though, because if you've never done it, it's a pretty hard grip, and you feel like you're going to break it.
Okay.
Don't be scared. Just yank.
Just pull it off, okay.
The second thing is we actually have two nuts that are back here that's holding the steam arm in. One is the copper tube itself, and then the other is a locking nut. So we're just going to get inside of there. Adjustable wrench, basically, that way I can get inside of it easily. Careful, it's sharp inside of here, so that's the biggest thing. A lot of people want to hold like this and push down. You're going to end up punching something down here. I like to just brace it right there. And then I just hit it on top like that, so that way when this comes down, we're okay.
Nice.
Once that happens, typically it's just finger tight once you break it.
Okay.
So you can actually pop that out of there. And that'll just slide back. Then we got to get this one out, and it's the exact same thing. I'm just going to get it, lock it in there, pop it down like that. You can see how hard that just hit. If your finger was under there, it would hurt.
Yeah.
This one's a little bit more... It's going to have grime and stuff in there, so this one doesn't typically. This is a new machine, so it's nice. Take it all the way
that one might have a little bit more sticking to it. Okay.
So a lot of times you have to use your wrench to get this off the whole way as opposed to finger getting it out. Also, we want to take this all the way off.
Okay.
A lot of people want to just leave it right there, but that needs to come all the way completely. And then set it over here. So once all these nuts are out, we need to get the body itself out of the machine.
Okay.
It's a little tricky because there's a very small hole that the steam arm itself has to come through. So there's a little bit of wiggling that goes on. This will kind of come freely, but you can see right here if I just lift it, it's catching right up here.
Yeah.
So what you do is you spin this around a little bit.
Spin the
steam arm itself.
The arm itself, okay.
Arm itself, and you see how that just popped free out of there like that? And then from there, it's just a little bit of angling to pull it straight through. Okay, so now we have the steam arm out, and we're holding this whole unit, basically. What we're trying to get into is actually this stuff inside of here. There's a little plunger that's going to be right there, and that's our goal. You can just take this stuff off. That's part of that nut that was right there. The first step to this whole thing, you can kind of see it pulls. Okay, so we got to take off this little C-clip.
Okay.
So we're going to grab these here, little spreaders. This, be careful. People always forget that there's a big spring inside of there. So we want to get this in, but hold it with your finger so that you don't hit the camera with the spring, because Cat will kill you.
Yes, he will.
Now, if you watch, I'm just going to kind of release it, but you see how that just exploded out at me? So there's 3 little washers, a little plastic one, 2 metal ones. I always recommend, if you can, take pictures or write down, because the plastic one goes in first.
Okay.
Try to remember the order these things come out in. Then the spring comes out just like that. I'm going to set these over here. That just pulls right off. Okay. One thing you'll notice, it's got these little notches. You can probably see it better that way. If you look right there, see how there's little notches right there? It actually makes no difference whatsoever which way that goes. So it's not important to remember there, but you can see right there, that's how that little clipping action happens.
Got it.
Okay. After that, there's these 2 little Allen wrench nuts. It's number 4 that goes inside of it, just like that. We're just going to loosen it. We're going to loosen this one. And I can actually just get it on the big side there. And then once that happens, we're good on the finger. You can just get your finger on there and pull it right out. Come on. There we go. And we'll do the same on the other side. Once that happens, this is going to pull right off. Again, really is not going to make any bit of difference which side you go onto, because they're exactly the same. Okay. And then it's just going to leave us with this. So the last piece we need to do is grab our adjustable wrench again. This is typically where you're going to want to have the vice grip. Now, if you have a second hand or something like that, it's helpful. The vice grip is the easiest way, though, because then you can just put it right on there, tighten that. This is going to be pretty tight. Again, this is new, so this one won't be. But if it was in use, this one's going to be on there pretty hard. Okay. From there, now I can actually bend it around. So from that side, just going to twist it on. It's normal side. You don't have to go any, clockwise or anything like that. Okay. Same thing. There's a little spring that's inside here, but it's not quite as springy, so it's not going to shoot out at me.
You don't have to wear a mask.
That comes out. Okay. And we literally just did all that work just to get at that. When you have a leaking steam arm, that is what's broke.
Okay.
So now we got the plunger out. We can just take the spring right off. Be careful not to mix it up with that spring. From there, you can see this little notch that's on there. Okay. Now you can do one of two things. You can have 2 wrenches to actually pull this off, or you could just go ahead and lock in like that. Get that straight. And then from there, I can actually just lock my little adjustable wrench on here. Oops. Maybe I can't. There we go, and that'll start spinning around, okay? It's the only downside of adjustable wrenches because they kind of lock up like that.
Yeah.
Just pull it straight off. Once that happens, though, now I can just pull that right out.
So you just have to start the process.
Yep.
Okay.
Now, if you don't feel like doing this, you can buy this kit with the stem itself.
Oh, okay.
Eventually, this stem will warp, so you will have to replace it at one point. But on the first year, there's really no reason to do that.
Okay.
And then we get our plunger off. So we've got our new plunger. It's just as simple as actually screwing it right back on. You do want to give it just a little extra tightness. It doesn't have to be incredibly hard, but a little bit past finger tight. Okay? So we'll put it right back in here. Put the wrench on there. And then just give it a little extra turn. Just like that. And now, it's on there just where we want it to be.
Perfect.
So the next part to this is semi-optional. This is going to be the swivel arm assembly.
Okay.
When your steam arm is actually kind of leaking, not from here, okay, that is the steam arm rebuild when we're leaking from here. But if it's actually leaking mainly from this ball valve, okay, then we need to replace the swivel arm assembly. If you're not seeing any leaking coming out, you don't really need to replace it.
Okay.
Generally speaking, though, most people replace it with the rebuild of the steam arm just because it's already out. Doesn't make much sense to do it otherwise.
Okay.
So from here, it's just a little nut we're going to pop out of there. So we're going to put it right back onto our table vise. Slide it over a little so I can actually spin it out of there. We're going to go onto the big nut here first.
I thought the big nut was you.
Yeah. That just comes right off like that.
Okay.
This is actually just an extender piece that's on here, so you're going to see a couple different things when you're watching at home. If I'm just going to take this off because it doesn't need to be there. If you don't have the tall version, you're just going to have this bottom part.
So you won't have this extra extender.
Because you won't have this extender.
Okay.
So other than that, though, there's really no big difference to that standpoint.
And that's the tall version of the Rancilio machine, all of the classes. Class 9. Okay.
Yep. So now, same thing here. You could use 2 wrenches and pop that off, or you could just go ahead and put it into a table vise, whatever is easier for you. Probably would help if I didn't have my wrench sitting on there like that.
I wasn't going to say anything.
No?
Okay.
That is not like you to never say anything.
And then you just did a quick to break the seal, and then a finger, you can release it with your finger. Okay.
This will be the same thing. All of these are really just break. Once you break them, they all pretty much slide off. Okay, and then once we're inside of there, there's a couple different components, which I don't know if you're going to be able to see unless I actually pull that out of there. There's a little white washer that's down. Do you see that down there?
A little bit, yeah.
That's actually a piece that's going to come in a swivel arm assembly that you're going to replace out.
Got it.
The other stuff is actually going to just be inside here, a little spring. Again, this actually is not any issue.
Okay.
Really what leaks is that little washer down there.
Okay, so you take that all apart, replace the washer, and maybe those things.
Yep, they'll all come in the kit, so you may as well replace them while they're there.
Okay, and then putting it back together again as easy as just...
Yep. It's easy as just going right back in.
And then doing a little quick tighten with a wrench.
Yep, we're going to put it just like this here. Get it back to, again, finger tight. Lock that down just so. And once again, these don't have to be terribly tight. You just got to get them to basically where it stops turning. So you see right there?
Yeah.
And then just give it a little after.
A little snug.
Yep, that's as tight as it's got to be. From there, take this back off since we have our extender piece on here. Make sure that the little crush washer stays on.
Okay.
Okay. And then the same thing. We're just going to put it right back where it was. Can throw this down here. Hold it for a second. And then again, that's already pretty finger tight, but now we're just going to Give
tighten
that
a little bit more.
right there.
Okay.
That's it. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and put everything back together, going inside. One of the things, again, little crush washer, just make sure that it stays in there. Again, it's not really getting replaced. We're just going to reuse it. And we're going to take our stem. Don't forget your spring. The spring actually goes right back inside just like that. Okay. And we're going to take this little piece here, slide it on down back in. And now we got a nice little spring action going there.
Okay.
That's going to give you a little bit of tension as you try to actually screw this in. So you got to hold it in just a little bit, but it will actually get started for you. And once it gets started, back in. Keep in mind, again, as you're seeing all this, you're going to have some grime. These machines, the ones that are being used, are actually, they're dirty. You're going to have a lot of espresso grinds in there. So you're probably not going to be able to make it look as easy with the finger tightening I'm doing. From there, we're just going to retighten this again. Now this one, same thing, so it just stopped. You could put it back in your vise if you wanted to. I'm just going to hold it and just bring it on just a little. Just give it a little tight. It doesn't have to be incredible, but just enough to hold it in place. Okay. From there, we're going to go ahead and put all the rest of these components back on. So we've got this piece, which brings us with our little Allen nuts that we had there, Allen screws. So we're going to screw this one on, some of these, this one won't make as much of a difference, but it's always good practice not to fully tighten one. Get one started, get the other started. Sometimes they don't line up right if you over tighten one side. From there, if it's dirty, you'll probably be doing this here. You could, on those little threads right there, if you have a little bit of food grade grease, you could actually just put it right on that screw. That will help it spin a little bit, especially if it's dirty.
Okay.
Here, you don't really want to over tighten it. It's a plastic piece. If you go crazy He-Man on it. Do people still understand He-Man references?
Yes. You could be Incredible Hulk, though.
Incredible Hulk, that's a little more.
It would crack the plastic if you went too
it'll crack
fierce.
it.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's good. It's tight. I mean, you can see where it is right there. I can't really turn it.
Yeah.
But just right to that standpoint.
Okay.
This piece is going to head back on as well. Again, not going to make any difference which side I go with.
Okay.
Okay. This is the fun part. So this is always, truthfully, the hardest part. It's probably not going to present very well on camera as well. If you have a second hand, it's great. What's going to happen, though, is I got to get this C-clip, if you remember, back on.
Yeah, with the washers and everything.
Yep. And surprisingly, it's actually hard. There's two steps that's hard. One is getting this washer. If you look on the stem, there's a little ridge right there. Do you see it?
Yes.
Just right around there. So what happens is, as I hold with one finger, that gets stuck in the ridge. So it's always a little complicated to get all the washers past that ridge.
Past the ridge, okay.
And then once you do that, and you think life is good,
it'll shoot out at you.
Yep.
And you'll do this about 6 times before you finally get it.
Yep. So then what you got to do is you're going to have to hold with your... See how if you have 2 people, it's much more helpful. So right now, if I had Kat actually put that clip on there, it'd be a lot easier.
But you know what? I'm not helping.
That's not going to do that. So now
that's above my pay grade.
What you're going to have to do is hold with one finger and use that clip to actually push this down. Okay. So we're going to come to the clip right over here, and we're going to spread it, and I'm going to push it down and in.
Okay.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
Now what's going to happen if you try to do that without years of experience, you're going to do this, and it's going to go...
And you're going to do this, like I said, 6 times before you get it right.
At least 6. I've been doing this for a long time, so it's a little easier. So yeah, if you have 2 people, someone that can do that for you, and then have another person put the clip on that way, life will be a lot easier. You won't lose all these washers, and everyone will be happy. So that's everything. That puts it all right back together. All right, now that's all back together again, we need to get it back into the machine. Going back into the machine is basically the exact same thing as getting out. If you look down here real quick, Kat, you're going to see a little hole right there.
Yeah.
So we just really need to get it down through that hole. What's going to happen, though, is I can't just stick it straight down. I need to bend it to get it in first. And
kind of finagle it, wiggle it around.
And then I'm back in this situation where it's kind of caught. So now I need to spin down here a little bit to get myself enough of an angle to where this will actually slide in, if that makes sense. See how that just popped in there like that finally?
Yeah.
And now I'm down at a downward angle. And now I can actually spin it around again and pop it all in. It's not a graceful thing. Don't worry. You're not going to hurt anything by just spinning around until it actually ends up somewhere. I do want to remember always to get this little crush washer actually on there.
Before you start sealing everything up?
Well, you don't have to, before you start sealing it up. You can put it on. I don't like putting it on before when I'm spinning like that because then it really just falls off. You really can put it on at any point.
Okay.
So that goes inside there, and that's it. Okay, now that we got it back in, we got to secure it. Otherwise, it's just going to sit there all wobbly like that. So the first thing is that little nut that we took off, obviously. Needs to go back on. This part here, I almost guarantee you, I guarantee you on a used machine will not go back like that.
You'll have to use some elbow grease with it?
You are going to have to put some food grade grease in there or just sit there with a wrench.
Okay.
That's why I like new machines, but it's not practical in the real world. So that's going to go on there. The first thing we got to do is tighten this nut first. So we don't want to go and just put this back on there. I actually want to tighten this to hold this in place. So a little adjustable wrench is going to go back on there. Make sure it's as level as you possibly can. If it's not quite level, you can reach in here with this and just level it out.
Move it a little bit.
Yep. It's not terribly important on this type of machine that it's exactly level, but it's always nice to have it as level as possible. There we go. All right. So this one I do want to put on pretty
firmly.
Decently.
Yeah.
You know, you can see me kind of yanking in on that a little bit. Once again, once you're to that standpoint, just get your wrench put on there and just back it off. Just straighten it out just a little.
Okay.
I just want that as straight as possible. From there, we're going to take this back on up. There's a lot of people that like to Teflon everything that water/steam goes through.
Okay.
You should not have to Teflon this. You want to make sure that this here, what happens if you Teflon it, a lot of people end up getting it inside and it ends up actually clogging the steam arm.
Oh, okay.
Because you can see how small of a hole that is.
Yeah.
So if we Teflon that, it ends up right there and then it ends up with an issue.
Okay.
There's really no reason, if it's leaking on a copper tube, tighten it more.
Okay.
From there, same thing, you're probably going to be wrenching it over like that. And then all we're going to do, in there. This one you do want to be somewhat careful. So you saw me kind of wrench that one down. This one not so much. Copper tubes, if you push them too hard, if they start slipping, you can end up twisting them, bending them.
Okay.
So this is on there pretty tough. You can see I can't back it off with my fingers, but I'm not overly tightening it. You can always, before we do this, we can turn the machine on and test it and see if it's leaking.
Okay.
If it's leaking, you can give it a little extra oomph, but that's going to tighten it right there.
Okay.
And then other than that, take your arm, stick it back on, and your steam arm's rebuilt.